From each happily ever after, every wish upon a star. Let's break down the movies that shaped who we are. From memory lane to now and everything in between. The most famous of films to the ones we've never seen. Decade by decade, all the times we laughed and cried. And with a little pixie dust, they will all take flight. Reliving the feelings, and we're trying our very best. And if they mean the same to you, please be our guest. So hop aboard, we would love to have you as we hang with a certain mouth, the whole gang too. If you love nostalgia stuff, we hope this does the trick. Thanks for joining us as we deep dive the magic.
Hi, and welcome back to the Deep Diving the Magic podcast. I'm KJ.
And I'm Jeffrey, and we are back with the 49th Disney feature-length film. We're still 1960s. We are November 1st, 1960. Today we are diving into a film that has the distinction of being rated by critics for being one of, if not the worst film made by Disney. It has the distinction of being called tedious and unconvincing. And Leonard Maltin, in his publication TV Movies, described it as rock bottom Disney. But before we get too far, and we'll let you make your own decision, this film, again from November 1st, 1960, is a film called 10 Who Dared, a live action adventure film. But would you like to start us off with a synopsis? Any thoughts about rock bottom Disney 10 Who Dared?
Major John Wesley Powell leads an expedition through the Grand Canyon to chart the Colorado River.
The end. Any opening thoughts on it, or?
It wasn't what I expected, and I never want to watch it again.
Perfect. So then let's dive right into it. Dive right off the Grand Canyon. All right, so the opening credits, it looks like they were going through the Grand Canyon. There's some noble music. We see that, again, like you said, it's based on the journal by Major John Wesley Powell. And it does say in the beginning that the film, it is filmed with the cooperation of the Grand Canyon National Park Arches National Monuments. We see some maps, and we learn that the year is 1869, and the map of the U.S. is almost complete. There is one major uncharted area, and that is the Colorado River. And John Wesley Powell, who I will be referring to as Major John, was determined to chart this area. This is a tale of the 10 men who dared the unknown, and it is told in John Powell's own words. They have 4 sturdy boats, and there's enough provisions to last them a few months.
Yep.
It also appears at this time that Major John Powell only has one hand.
Okay.
And everybody's on their boats and everyone's doing like the rowing, but he is sitting on like a normal like coffee table chair that is roped to the boats.
Yeah, it was very interesting, and it bothered me because the river scenes, the background doesn't seem to match anything that's going on.
No. So he sits in this chair that's tied to the boats, and there's a reporter that's asking all the men their names and what their jobs are. Some of them oblige, some of them don't. And we learn that the people on shore do not think that they are going to survive this expedition. But it begins.
Yeah.
And we soon learn that one of the men sneaks along a dog. Anything to say about this dog?
It's a cute little ugly dog.
Cute little ugly dog. And then we also see that one man snuck along some alcohol that he's drinking in a flask.
Jarby. The dog's name's Jarby.
Jarby.
And the guy that sneaks him is named Andy.
Yeah. The men on this expedition, they're all dressed differently, but I have to say that these men would make one great bowling team because they all have these wonderful bowling hats on. So again, this is what you were saying. The filming quality of this film is, I think it's worse than the last 20 years of Disney films. It's the background looks fake, like you said.
Yeah. Um, it was filmed, like you said, in the 1960s, obviously kicking off 1960,
Yeah.
in a time where Western and adventure films were very popular.
And you can tell.
Mm.
The
But it is known for being a prolific low budget filmmaking thing.
I mean,
I did get that.
great way to put it. Prolific, low budget filming.
That's what it said when I was looking it up. The guy that directed it, it was talking about what his direction brought or possibly didn't bring to this project.
Yeah.
And I was like,
So
what it didn't
so we see the guys go off on their expedition on the
bring.
river.
Time out. What it didn't bring was action.
Hey, this is an action film.
It is listed on Disney Plus as an adventure western. And I didn't get that either.
So the men take off on their expedition and they're talking to each other, they're getting to know each other.
Yeah.
They go ashore for the night and they're singing songs about the Jolly Rover.
hmm
And that's when we see that the dog comes out and the guy who said his name was Andy.
His name's Andy.
I didn't name any of these guys. But the one guy who has the dog, he's told that he has to get rid of the dog and the dog can't come along on the journey. They didn't make the rules. The dog can't come along on the journey, and they give him a gun. I mean, it's not funny, but like they give him a gun,
Yeah.
which is very rough.
And I sit there and thought to myself, oh God, this is about to be way worse than Old Jeller ever dared to be.
Right in the first 5 minutes of the film.
Well, I'm gonna stop watching this.
But the men end up. We are complete this podcast. The men end up fighting with each other, and but Major John does then stop the guy from shooting the dog, and he refuses to shoot the pup himself and declares to bring the dog aboard. So the dog is coming on the adventure, whether he wants to or not. So the next scene, the ships are traveling down some heavy rapids.
Whitewater rafting at its best.
That's right. Adventure. And then we learn
First
that
adventure you get during the whole film.
that some days they travel as much as 60 miles. When they get to shore for the night, that there's some men that are panning for gold. They like fight over whose canteen they're using and stuff like that. And then they end up fighting some more. Everybody's fighting. So then we realize that the dinner for tonight is bacon and couche. That might have been the breakfast, but either way, they're going to eat bacon and couche, which I guess is some sort of gravy. Have you ever heard of couche before?
I've not.
Well, they sing more old-timey songs. They're going down the river, but the one guy calling it couche ends up causing it to give away that he's a Southerner, which causes a these two men on one of the boats to fight.
You wouldn't be a Johnny Reb, would you?
Yeah, because the war had just ended, so one was a Northerner, one was a Southerner, and because the one guy said couche, it gave it away that where he was from, and they
I've
ended up
never
fighting.
heard of that. And I grew up in the South pretty much my entire life.
Yes,
I've never heard of
but you were
couche.
born in a century
And not
that
the
started with
18.
that started with 19 instead of 18. So
If you're from the South and you call it goosh, let us know.
so there's more drinking happening on the boats. One man convinces another man who clearly doesn't drink anymore to have a drink, which causes him to drink and kind of reignite a problem. He says that these drinks are good for scorpion bites, which I was like, that must be a strong drink right there. And then while the two men are drinking, Major John he waves his flag, signaling the boats to go ashore. Are you looking up couche?
No, was not.
Okay.
You can keep going.
Okay.
I just wanted to, I didn't write my rating down,
Oh.
so I wanted to make sure what I actually rated
I
it.
say.
I thought I knew what I rated
Yeah.
it, but I wanted to make
That's
sure.
it.
Sorry.
I wanted to see if you're looking up Koosh.
No, it was not the
So
Koosh.
Major John waves his flag with his one hand to signal to go ashore, but the two men who have been drinking have become very much drunk, and they end up fighting over more alcohol, causing them to miss the shore and head straight towards the rocks and rapids, causing them to have to abandon ship and ruining one of the boats.
Mm-hmm.
Another one of the men is able to save them, but Major John is very angry at the drunks, and now they're not only drunk, they're also very wet. And he says that your whiskey cost us a boat. So now they're down a boat. So now they only have three boats
I'm
with
pretty sure you wanted to know who brought it.
three boats, 800 miles to go, and now less portions because some of the portions were on the boat. And then there's one man who you might have his name. I think he's one of the main characters. He is one of the main characters. He is reading from like an almanac about the stars, which is something he does frequently in the film.
Yeah, I didn't get his name.
And he says not to take any risks on that day. That's what the almanac
I only
says.
had Andy, Jarby, the dog, and then the Major.
Yeah. So not to take any risks that day. That's what the almanac says. But then at the same time, the whiskey comes back ashore from the wreck, and then men fight over the whiskey some more.
Mm-hmm.
But then they end up getting rid of it. Major John and then the help of I think maybe his brother, they throw the whiskey over into the water, and they end up shooting with a gun, causing it to sink. But the drunk men are chasing after it. They get to Echo Cliff, and they're all like echoing their words off of everything. But then they hear another voice, and they realize that they're joined by a gentleman named Jim Baker, who looks like every other character from an old Western. He warns them about going down the river and that there's waterfalls bigger than Niagara Falls. And then his wife tells them of old tales, causing that the people to get scared, basically. Like they are making the men nervous. I wrote down here that one of the guys talks like Boomhauer, King of the Hill. And then
Did you understand him?
I mean, I didn't understand much about this movie in general. So, but then the drunk man from earlier announces that he will be leaving the search party in the morning. So he's leaving. Then there's more arguing about the war. Two men have a fist fight over taking a bath. Not making that up. The two men from earlier who are fighting over which side of the war they were on. Others are watching and cheering them on like it's a boxing match. But then Major John returns, making them stop fighting. They're all bloodied up. But then John gets upset because one of the men call him a crippled, and he ends up punching the guy in the face. But also around this time, one of the two men that are fighting about the sides of the war gets frustrated, and he wants to go off on his own, whether to hunt or whatever, and he grabs a gun and he decides to go hunt. And then the other angry man grabs another gun and was going to follow him to shoot him. But as he gets closer, the first man has him at point blank range to shoot him, but that ends up not shooting him because the war is over and they seemingly kind of forgive each other. Is that a good synopsis of that whole thing?
Mm-hmm.
And then they get back to the fire and they're talking about what songs they're going to sing. And then the northern guy recommends singing a southern song, kind of showing that they have, put the war behind them and made a truce. Then there's more gold mining, and then the rest of the men think that the major and his brother have been gold mining for gold and for precious rocks and holding off on them, like doing it all. It's a family business, they called it. But really, the major has been collecting fossils for a museum for free.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, the major is almost attacked by a rattlesnake, and then the Boomhauer guy saves him from the rattlesnake. but he like wants to play around with it, which makes the major kind of upset. He says like, don't tell me what to do. But the next morning, the rattlesnake returns for its revenge, and the crazy man like spits tobacco at it. He's playing with it, which ends up having it get bit. Major John sucks the venom right out with his own mouth, which is disgusting.
It was a different time of day.
Yeah, imagine that kissing that mouth.
Nope.
Um,
I'd have been like, well, survival of the fittest, sir.
but then the Boomhauer guy, the crazy guy from earlier, he's all sick, but he said he would do it again because no one tells him what to do. But then they discuss that being sick means that they have to stay a couple days longer on the land because there's like him being sick is a liability, which unfortunately means that they're going to eat more of their food and lose more of their rations. And then in the perfect timing, we have a doozy of a Disney storm. But once the weather clears and the guy's feeling better, back to health, the water journey continues through the wonderful cliffs and landscapes. But the cliffs and landscapes are so beautiful that Major John makes the party go ashore to take a closer look. But the men are mad at the Major for all the stops and that they announce that they only have enough food for one more meal. The Major's writing in his book and he's talking about how he's feeling the strain. But then when they're climbing the mountain, they see they can see their landmark where they're going to, which gives them like hope that they're
going there
that things are succeeding. So it kind of brings them all together. So then they decide that they're going to eat their they're going to eat their last meal now before they go off and finish the journey. But the Major decides that he wants to go off and look at the formation some more. So the men are like, look, we're leaving at 1:00, with or without you. At 1:00, we're leaving. And he's like, yep, you can leave without me at 1:00. So he climbs up to take in the breathtaking views. Remember, he only has one arm, so he's putting the hikers from Third Man of the Mountain to shame. But then I spoke too soon because he does slip and fall on his way down. And he catches himself with his one good hand. And he's screaming for help. And nobody can hear him except for
Jarby,
the dog. Yep, the dog senses that there's trouble, so he takes off running to find what's causing it. And then the camp get worried, so they go check on the dog, and that's when they hear the Major's pleas for help. The dog is the hero. Good thing they didn't shoot the dog. The dog is the hero.
Which is funny because the captain actually decided not to shoot the dog, so
The dog saved his life.
yeah.
Well,
the Major, sorry, called him the captain.
So the brother comes to the rescue. The rest of the men pull him up by the ropes in a very team building, good morale kind of way.
Yeah.
So then they get back to camp and they realize
Jarby
that the dog, Jarby, ate their last meal and they are out of food. From hero to zero really fast.
They didn't kill him though, so that was good.
Nope. But the rest of the journey the rest of the journey is going to take days with no food.
Yeah.
And they're so hungry that they discuss eating Jarby the dog.
No,
Jarby. It is 75 miles to St. George, but only a little under 40 miles to their next stop. So then Major John asks his brother to help convince the guys to trust him and keep going. But in the morning, some of the men tell the Major that they are going off on their own. They're gonna go on land because there's no reason to die on the river. But the Major is very upset because he wants to finish his exploration, causing him to, he gets in a boat and he's like, forget it, I'm gonna go by myself. Which then causes some of the men to rejoin him and realize that they have to go with him because he's the only person that knows where they're going. Which is then only leaving behind 3 men. The crazy rattlesnake guy and two other men. And the guy threatens to keep the dog, but then he ends up letting the dog go back in the boat with its owner. So now we are down to 6 men and 2 boats. and 3 on the land.
Mhm.
The 3 men on the land struggle. They struggle on their journey because there's no food and there's no sense of direction without the major.
Mhm.
And they,
And they're just gonna climb out.
yep. So, and they are confronted by a tribe who take their guns and blame them for the death of one of the women of the tribe.
Mhm.
But they try to plead, but there's obviously like a language barrier. But they do end up getting their guns.
But Boomhauer knows how to speak it.
Yeah,
He knows how to speak their language.
Yeah.
He's the only one that knows how to speak their
Yeah.
language. Would you trust that one guy? Because
No.
he seems to be like your wild card. Do you trust him to translate for you? I don't know if I would.
But they are able to get their guns back and they're able to be set free. And then it cuts back to the what?
Okay. That's not what I got out of it, but okay.
No. So at this point, they're able to set
Oh,
free,
at that point, I
and they're
guess.
walking away, and they're talking about like, "Wow, we got really lucky,"
Okay.
which causes the Boomhauer dude to read in his almanac book about like luck and stuff like that, and it's in the stars.
Okay.
Yeah, you on the same page? That's
Yep.
what happened. Yep. So then,
I think I'm trying to fast forward it.
So then we're back on the water. The men brace for more rapids. The water is disgusting. It looks like Willy Wonka's chocolate river. It makes Boston's dirty water look clean. The boat struggles through these disgusting rapids, but they then make it to they make it through, and they turn a corner and they make it to calmer waters, and they realize that they arrived to the land, and they climb up to look at on their successful trip. The Colorado has been conquered.
Mhm.
John Powell is the first explorer of the Grand Canyon. That's what it says as it's ending. But then there's a narrator voice, which is John Powell reading from his book, that says that the 3 other men did not survive because they were not as lucky, because the tribe didn't officially let them go. It doesn't dive into any details. I don't know if you wrote anything down.
I just had that basically the 2 groups had split, and the one climbed out of the gorge area that they were in, and the other went further down the river.
Mm-hmm.
And the group that climbed out did not make it alive. And then the group that went on down the river finished their expedition happily ever after for them.
It wasn't like,
And thankfully, the dog made it because he went with
Yeah.
river people.
but like they don't show the other ones not making it. It's just like it's like the last passage he reads out of his book that they didn't survive.
Yeah.
And then it's the end. And I wrote here that this film
Lived up
to its
expectations.
reputation. Here's the thing.
I think it actually was the lowest IMDb rating I've seen thus far.
Here's the thing, right?
Okay.
We love film. We love movies.
I
We-
thought it was just
we-
very hard to follow.
We love supporting the Walt Disney Company in many ways. I'm wearing this sweatshirt right now. This was not streaming. We had to pay money to watch this film.
Amazon.
But
Stream this baby through Amazon.
so
I
please
highly
do,
recommend you do not.
please do, and send us an email
No,
at
we do
this
not.
whatever the dude like the famous critic earlier called it a dud or whatever. So speaking of that, let's talk ratings. Let's talk List Upon a Star. Let's talk this adventure film.
Your guess. What do you think IMDb rated it?
I don't know, like
Stop looking at my notes.
a 2.
No. They rated it a 5.5 out of 10.
So speaking of a 5.5 out of 10, I would like to go back up and read what I started this off with. What did you rate it?
I rated it a 4.
A 4.
I had to go back and look to make sure I didn't rate it lower.
Critics from allmovies.com rated this the worst Disney film. Hallowell's Film Guide called it tedious and unconvincing. And the almighty Leonard Maltin, who my parents have shelves full of books about, said that this was a bomb, calling it rock bottom Disney. So, does this rock bottom its way into your List Upon a Star?
No.
So then what is your List Upon a Star?
So my List Upon a Star is Sleeping Beauty, Dumbo, Lady and the Tramp, The Three Caballeros, The Shaggy Dog, Peter Pan, Alice in Wonderland, Fantasia, Toby Tyler, or 10 Weeks with the Circus, and Saludos Amigos.
So this film taught me something. It taught me something.
Ooh.
I didn't even tell you this. I had a revelation watching this film. It taught me, and it made me realize that I was too rough on Treasure Island. I was too rough on Pollyanna, because this film, to put it nicely, because we are a positive watch along podcast. Time out. I wasn't gonna say this, but I
I'm
watched a review of a different podcaster from many years ago talking about this film, and when it starts off, the person's just like head in hands, like, oh my gosh. So, my list upon a star is Peter Pan, Alice in Wonderland, Pinocchio, The Adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, Sleeping Beauty, Lady and the Tramp, The Three Caballeros, Cinderella, and The Shaggy Dog. Sorry if we weren't the most upbeat or positive about it,
I rated
but I would
it
love for you to watch
4.
a 4. So you've actually rated something worse than this.
I think I have. I only rated it a 4 because they didn't kill the dog. Had they killed the dog, I would have rated it a 2.
Man, you rated something. What was it that you rated? It was like
I can't
recent.
remember. It was like a 3
no,
or a
you
3.5.
you rated like something like a 2 recently.
Did I really?
Yeah,
Are you sure?
yeah. Deep dive
I
at gmail.com. Because we were like, oh, this is worse than A Light in the Forest or
I thought
Baby
it was the 3. I don't think I
or
rated anything.
Treasure Island. Oh, it was
Oh.
Kidnapped.
Oh yeah. Did I rate it a 2?
Yeah. Yo, this
Maybe,
was
okay, so if that's the
this movie
case,
kidnapped our money and our time.
okay, so if that's the case, I'm gonna change my rating to a 2. I'm gonna
Um,
make it right up there with Kidnapped because I felt the same way when I watched it.
but kind of like our friends in Pollyanna, we always look for the glad, right? So if we're not only glad that it's over, you know what? You know what this is? You know what we're glad about?
I'm glad I don't have to watch this
No,
again.
this film makes it so our next film, our friends, our next film is film number 50. We made it to 50. We made it to 50 films. That is a bigger milestone than this dude conquering the Grand Canyon. The 50th film from December of 1960 is another adventure film. Will we feel the same way for this next adventure film? And it is a family adventure film
I feel like it can only go up from here.
called The Swiss Family Robinson. Now, if you watched our episode a few episodes back about when I mentioned all the animals from our true life adventure, maybe I was touching on this next film. But so we will be watching film number 50 from December of 1960, and that is The Swiss Family Robinson. So yeah, this film happened. Will the next film also happen? Deep dive in the magic pod at gmail.com.
Thanks for deep diving the magic.
Bye.
Bye.